Hello everybody and welcome back to the next episode of our series where we are building a top-down 2D game in Unity. Last time we got our character's animation set up, and this time, well, we need to get the camera fixed to follow him around the island, otherwise he's just going to be able to walk off the screen. And in order to do that, we're actually going to use Unity's own camera system, so we're going to use the cinemachine. To do that, you will need to install it, so come up to the window at the top, go down to Package Management and the Package Manager, and then making sure that you're within Unity Registry, just pop in Cine and it should come up. There we go, so there is our cinemachine, and then we will need to just install that one. That will just take it a second, but once it's finished we can close down the Package Manager, and now if we come over to our hierarchy over on the left hand side, we can right click, and then if you scroll right down through the options we can see cinemachine has now been added down at the bottom. And we want to add in a cinemachine camera. And the great thing about the cinemachine camera is that it has a lot of functionality already built into it that we would usually have had to do with code. Even if it was only a basic camera, usually there'd be something that we'd have to code, and this is going to do an awful lot of it for us. In particular, if we notice just here on the inspector, it says tracking target, and it's looking for a transform, so a position is what it's looking for. So it wants to know what position it should be holding to track. Well, that's the player. That's what we want it to follow. So we can come back over to our hierarchy. We can grab hold of the player, drag and drop, and then pop them over there into tracking target. So it says, okay, I will now follow the player around. Next then, we can come down to global settings, which can stay exactly as they are. And then if we have a look underneath that, we can see the procedural components, which is asking, what do you want me to do about position, rotation and noise? Well, we're not fussed about rotation or noise, the camera's not going to be spinning or anything like that, but position is what we want it to be changing. So if we have a look in this drop down then, we have got a few selections and we can see up at the top, aha, follow. So we'll select that instead then. Cinemachine is now following, so let's play the game and see if it's doing so. And hey, there we go, the camera is now following our little guy around. But two things of note. Number one, it's very close at the moment. We seem to be having a bit of a zoomed in shot of him, and it's very, very juddery. Looks like it's sort of lagging or something. It's not, it's just the effect at the moment of it trying to keep up with the following. We will fix that in just a second. First of all, let's do something about how close this camera is. So we can stop playing our game at this point. But if we stay on the green screen over here in your window so we can see how close that camera is, and we can come back over to the cinemachine camera and we can see there is a drop down for the lens. So we just open that one up, but we can see here we have orthographic size. That is effectively how big is the lens if you think about it. So it's going to be how zoomed in it is, how close, and that's what we want to move out just a little bit. Whoa, we can zoom right in on him. But no, we want to zoom a little bit out just so that it feels comfortable. I'm going to go back to there, maybe a bit more, maybe there. Just have a play and see how that looks. Yeah, there we go. That feels a little bit more comfortable. As the world fills in, if it becomes that it feels claustrophobic, we can just move that lens again and we can make it so that he looks more comfortable. Now we need to do something about all of this juddering that's going on. And we can kind of see immediately why it's happening. As I move the player, if I move him just a little tiny bit, you see that he moves and then the camera catches up. Move, catch up. Move, catch up. Move, catch up. And it's constantly having to try to do that as you're moving in a straight line that's causing all of this juddering. I don't want the camera to be playing catch up, I want it to just follow the player nice and smoothly. And luckily for us, that's a nice easy fix. So back on our scene mode and back with our cinemachine follow down the bottom, we can see at the moment we've got damping on. So that is the fancy effect of the camera trying to let you get ahead and then quickly catch up with you. We don't need that. We need it to just follow us. So we can set all of these to 0. And now when we hit play, we should just be straight following the character, no messing about. There we go. That is what we wanted to see. None of that damping effect. Now, one thing I'm sure you have noticed is that at the moment when I hit play, my character is facing backwards. That's not great, so let's change that one. So if we just stop this and we'll come back to the player, we will come back to the animator. So we can see at the moment from entry we are going straight into idle. That's great. It's not like we're immediately starting off walking or anything. But if we have a look in idle, we can see at the top we've at the moment got idle back. I don't want that. I want it to be idle front first really. So if I just click on my blend tree, come back over to my motions, I'm just going to grab idle front from the two little lines on the side, drag it up to the top. Then when I let it go, you can see it is now up at the top. So now when we come back to our game and we hit play, my player should be facing forwards and not backwards. There we go. That's much better. He is at least looking towards the camera rather than standing there with his back to you. So brilliant, we've got our camera following our character nicely. The only problem is at this point it doesn't actually stop following the character. If I come right over here to the edge of where the island is, I can see the whole background of where the game is no longer being. That's not great. We want the camera to stop before it reaches that point. I need the camera to stop about there, but I want my character to still be able to walk to the very edge. For that then, we need to set a camera boundary. And luckily for us, that is just as easy using the cinemachine as the follow was. So if we come back over to the hierarchy and we select our cinemachine camera, and then we come over to the inspector and we go down to add a component to it, then we type in cine. It'll give us all of the components we can potentially add on to the camera. And we can see here, we've got cinemachine confiner. We can select that and add it on. And what it's looking for is a shape. So it needs to have some kind of collision box. Well, luckily that's something we can make nice and easily. If we come back over to the hierarchy, we can right click, go down to create an empty object, and I'm just going to call this boundary. What you call it is entirely up to you. It depends if you want to be creating villages or numerous maps or anything, but for now I'm just going to call it the boundary. Within this then, I am then going to add onto it a box collider. Because what the box collider 2D is going to do is it's going to give us a shape. If I just zoom out so that we can see it and we can edit this. Oh, it's absolutely tiny at the moment. We want to drag this out and make this the same size as our map. Just like so. And then that now is going to act as a boundary for the camera as well. So if we come back over to our cinemachine camera, then we can take this boundary and we can now drag it and drop it down here where it says bounding shape 2D. We can just drop it into there and it'll say, right, okay, I won't go beyond this point. So now, when we play our game, this time as we wander our character over towards the edge, the camera's not going to be able to get that far. We can still follow the player, brilliant, we can still follow him around, but as we go over towards the edge to go and look out over the sea, we can't see that annoying boundary that was there before, because it's just showing the map, it's not showing that background as well. Nice. But I'm sure the sharp-eyed amongst you will have noticed is that as I'm moving my character around in the middle, he's absolutely fine, but as we get towards the edge now, the juddering comes back again. And that's because, look, lo and behold, damping and slowing have made a return to us. So if we just close this one down, then we come back over here, we do not want damping. Damping does not do anything here, and we want our slowing distance to be 0. We want the camera to just go straight to the boundary and then stop. None of this trying to do fancy effects nonsense. So now we should be able to move around, we can move away, we can move back again, and the camera just stops. It doesn't try to slow itself down as it reaches the boundary or anything like that. It just does its job and behaves like a good little camera. And just one final thing about our camera boundary. With it set up as it is at the moment, it is a solid boundary. So once we add a collider to our player, so that they're not able to walk through buildings and fences and all of that sort of stuff, which we will get set up in the next episode, this player also wouldn't be able to walk across the boundary. If you did want the player to be able to walk across, for example, if you were creating a game where you want the player to be able to walk towards the edge of a level and then the camera stops but the player keeps going, fade and transition to next level type thing, then you will need to make one tiny change to your boundary, and that is that it will need to be isTrigger. Once you've done that, the player will be able to walk through even when they've got a collider on, but the camera won't be able to. But that's it. So we've got our camera set up. As I say, in the next episode we are going to be getting all of the decorations in, so this isn't quite such a shockingly boring island, which it is at the moment. We'll have a look at Y sorts and buildings and fences and all of that sort of good stuff. For now though, happy game making, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!